How do you bury a secret that refuses to stay hidden? The question lingered in my mind as I sat in the dusty attic of my grandmother's old house on Maple Street in Salem, Massachusetts. The air was thick with the scent of mothballs and memories, and the dim light filtering through the cracked window cast eerie shadows that danced across the walls. Among the forgotten relics of my childhood lay an antique doll, its porcelain face chipped and its once vibrant dress faded to a ghostly hue. I had always known that the doll was peculiar, but I never suspected it held the key to the darkness that enveloped my family. My name is Claire Donovan, and I had returned home after years away, drawn not by nostalgia, but by the unsettling feeling that something was wrong. The moment I stepped through the creaking door, I was engulfed by a familiar yet unsettling sense of foreboding. My grandmother's house, once a sanctuary filled with warmth and laughter, now felt like a crypt, harboring secrets that whispered through the halls like the wind howling outside. As I rummaged through the attic, I could hear the faint echo of my grandmother's voice, a comforting presence that had always anchored me in this chaotic world. But her passing had left a void, and I found myself haunted by unspoken words and unexplained silences. The doll, with its glassy eyes staring into the abyss, seemed to beckon me closer, as if it were aware of my turmoil. I could feel the weight of its gaze, a silent accusation that urged me to confront the family history I had long buried. It was just after dusk when the first strange occurrence rattled me. I had just placed the doll back on a shelf when I heard a soft murmur, like the rustling of leaves in a forgotten forest. I turned, convinced I was imagining things, but the air grew colder, and the murmurs intensified, weaving through the attic like an insistent whisper. Secrets, it seemed to say. Dark secrets. My heart raced as I realized I was not alone. The walls, once comforting, now felt like they were closing in on me, and the shadows morphed into shapes that danced just beyond my sight. In that moment, I was flooded with memories of my childhood, the laughter of family gatherings, the warmth of my grandmother's embrace, and the chilling stories she told of our ancestors. They spoke of curses and betrayals, of secrets that could shatter a family. I had pushed those memories aside, convincing myself they were just tales meant to scare children. But standing in the attic now, I felt a primal fear grip me, as if the past was reaching out to ensnare me in its dark embrace. The house itself was a character in this unfolding drama, its creaky floorboards groaning under the weight of history. The walls seemed to absorb the light, and the air was thick with the tension of unspoken truths. I could almost hear the echoes of my grandmother's warnings, her eyes narrowing as she'd tell me to stay away from the doll. But curiosity, that insatiable beast, had brought me here, and with it came the realization that I was about to unearth something far more sinister than I had ever imagined. But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. As the sun sank below the horizon, casting long shadows across the attic floor, I felt an overwhelming pull toward the doll. It seemed to pulse with energy, resonating with a truth I had long ignored. My breath caught in my throat as I reached out to touch its delicate hand. The moment my fingers made contact, a jolt of electricity surged through me, and the whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a tempest. "Claire," a voice echoed, this time clear and distinct. It was my grandmother's voice, but layered with a sense of urgency that sent shivers down my spine. "You mustn't ignore it, you must remember." I stumbled back, my heart racing. Panic clawed at my chest as I fought to regain my composure. I had come here seeking resolution, a way to honor my grandmother's memory, not to stumble upon a family curse. I could hear the whispers morph into cries, a chorus of voices that seemed to intertwine with my own thoughts, filling my mind with images of betrayal and sorrow. Just as I was about to flee the attic, the door creaked open. My cousin, Mark, stepped inside, his presence a welcome distraction. He had always been the adventurous one, the one who sought out the thrill of the unknown. His tousled hair and wide eyes reflected a mix of excitement and concern. "Claire, what's going on?" he asked, glancing around the attic as if he could sense the tension in the air. I heard the odd noises from downstairs. It sounded like someone was crying. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice shaky. "But I think it's the doll. I've always felt there was something off about it." Mark's brow furrowed, and he stepped closer, his interest piqued. "You're not seriously going to let a creepy doll scare you, are you? It's just an old toy. I mean, it's not like it's going to come to life or something." I shot him a glare, desperation clawing at me. "You don't understand. It's not just the doll, it's everything. The house, the history, the secrets. I can feel it in my bones that something's wrong." He crossed his arms, skepticism etched across his face. "Fine then, let's get to the bottom of it. We can figure it out together." As we conversed, the whispers subsided, replaced by an unsettling silence that hung heavily in the air. I could see Mark's skepticism slowly fading, replaced by an intrigue that mirrored my own fear. Together, we examined the doll more closely, and I noticed an inscription on the bottom of its base, a name I'd never heard before. Annalise. "Who's Annalise?" Mark mused aloud. "Is that one of your ancestors?" I don't know," I stammered. "But I feel like it's important." As we dug through old family albums and boxes filled with dusty heirlooms, we began to piece together fragments of a story that had been buried for generations. Annalise was a distant relative, a woman shrouded in scandal, rumored to have been involved in dark practices that had brought misfortune to our family. The more we discovered, the more the weight of our lineage pressed down on me, suffocating and relentless. But the emotional turmoil didn't just stem from the past. It was also about my relationship with Mark. We had always been close, but now I felt a rift growing between us, a hesitance to share the depths of my fear. I could sense his frustration as he tried to rationalize the supernatural events unfolding around us. I wanted to confide in him, to share my darkest fears, but the burden of the family secret felt too heavy to lift. And then, as if in response to our exploration, the attic door slammed shut behind us, plunging us into darkness. The sudden darkness sent my heart racing again, and for a moment I felt utterly alone, trapped in a whirlwind of past and present. We were both left breathless, adrenaline coursing through our veins as the whispers returned, more insistent than ever. "Claire," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper, "what are we going to do?" I glanced at him, fear etched on my face. "We have to find out the truth, whatever it takes." Little did I know, the truth would reveal itself in ways I could never have anticipated, and the choice to confront it would set us on a path from which there would be no return. As I stood in the thick darkness of the attic, the air heavy with a palpable tension, I could feel the whispers intensifying, shifting from a mere chorus to a cacophony of voices clamoring for my attention. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to drown them out, but they seeped into my consciousness like a relentless tide. "You must remember. You must remember." "Claire," Mark said, his voice trembling slightly, breaking through the veil of panic. "This isn't normal. Maybe we should call someone." "No!" I snapped, the desperation in my voice surprising even me. "You don't understand. It's not just about the doll, it's about our family. There's something here, something we're meant to uncover." Before Mark could respond, I felt a sudden chill sweep over me, sharp and biting, as if the air itself had turned to ice. I turned to the doll, now bathed in the fading light that managed to filter through the attic's grimy window. It seemed to be watching us, its glassy eyes glinting with an unsettling awareness. I stumbled back, driven by an instinct I could not explain. "Claire, what is it?" Mark asked, concern replacing his earlier skepticism. I hesitated, grappling with the memories that began to surface. Hazy images of my childhood, snippets of conversations overheard, the hushed tones of my mother and grandmother discussing the curse that hung over our family. I remember something about a family secret, a pact, a betrayal. As I spoke, Mark's expression shifted from confusion to horror, and I realized he was recalling his own fragmented memories. Wait, didn't Grandma mention Annalise once? She told me to stay away from that name, that it was dangerous. The walls of the attic seemed to close in on us as I recalled the stories passed down through whispered warnings. I had brushed them aside as mere family folklore, but now they felt ominously real. What if Annalise isn't just a ghost from our past? What if she's tied to us somehow? What if we're... Before I could finish, a loud bang echoed through the attic, rattling the floorboards beneath us. I jumped, my heart racing as the whispers morphed into a single, urgent voice. "You must break the cycle." Mark grabbed my arm, his grip tight with fear. "Claire, this is insane. We need to get out of here." But I couldn't move. I felt anchored to the spot, as if the doll had woven itself into my very being. "No, wait, I have to know." Just then, the doll's eyes flickered, and I gasped as a vision assaulted me. Annalise's face, twisted in anguish, her eyes pleading. I saw a dark room filled with shadows, a ritual of sorts, and the faces of my ancestors, their expressions a mix of anger and sorrow. My heart raced as I realized this was my family's legacy, a burden passed down through generations, and I could feel the weight of it crashing down upon me. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my temples, as if the memories were too much to bear. I staggered, clutching my head, but the vision continued, revealing darker truths. I saw betrayal, love lost, and a sacrifice made that had rippled through time, infecting our family line with despair. "Claire!" Mark shouted, his voice a lifeline in the chaos. "You're losing it. We need to leave." But the truth was unraveling before me, and I was terrified of what it meant. I could feel the walls of sanity beginning to crack. "No, don't you see? This is all connected. We have to confront it." Yet, as I looked at Mark, I saw something shift in his expression. An unsettling flicker of understanding mixed with fear. "You really think we're cursed?" he asked, the skepticism replaced with something darker, something that felt eerily familiar. Before I could respond, the attic door swung open, revealing the dim hallway beyond. A figure stood there, silhouetted against the fading light. I squinted, my breath catching in my throat as recognition washed over me. It was my mother, her face pale and drawn, a ghost of the woman I once knew. "Claire," she said softly, her voice trembling, "you shouldn't have come here. You don't understand what you're dealing with." I felt my heart drop. The mystery deepened, the shadows around us thickening as I realized the truth was far more complicated than I had ever imagined. My mother's presence only amplified the tension, and the path ahead grew murkier with every breath. What had I unleashed by touching the doll? What truths lay ahead, waiting to engulf us in their darkness? As I stood there, my mother's figure loomed like a specter, the air thick with unspoken truths and unrelenting dread. "Mom, you're here," I stammered, disbelief mingling with desperation. "You know what's happening, don't you?" She took a cautious step forward, her eyes darting towards Mark, whose expression had shifted from fear to confusion. "You shouldn't be here, Claire," she repeated, her voice laced with urgency. "You don't know what you've awakened." The whispers escalated, drowning out my thoughts, and I could feel the weight of my family's legacy pressing down on me, suffocating in its intensity. "What did we awaken? What happened to Annalise?" I demanded, my voice rising in a mix of anger and fear. "I need to know." Mom hesitated, her gaze flickering to the doll, now resting ominously on the dusty floor. Annalise was a part of our family, yes, but she was also a warning. The pact, it was meant to protect us, but it came with a cost that has haunted our bloodline for generations. You must leave this place before it claims you too. "No," I shouted, shaking with a mix of defiance and despair. "I won't run away from this. I need to break the cycle." The words felt like a declaration, a battle cry against the dark heritage I had unknowingly inherited. Mark's grip on my arm tightened, his eyes wide with fear. "Claire, listen to your mother. We have to go now." But I could feel it, the pull of the past, the urgency of the whispers swelling within me. I had to confront it. "Stay out of this, Mark," I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. "This is my family's legacy, my burden to bear." Mom's expression shifted, a flicker of something akin to pride mingled with fear. "You have a choice, Claire, but be careful. The truth may be more than you can handle. Annalise is not just a ghost, she's a part of us, and she will fight to keep her secrets buried." Suddenly, the doll rattled violently, and I felt a surge of energy coursing through the room, resonating with the chaos in my mind. "What do you want from us?" I cried, the words escaping my lips before I could think. "What do you need me to do?" In response, the whispers coalesced into a single, commanding voice, echoing in the confines of my mind. "Break the cycle, Claire. You are the key." With that, the attic trembled, and I felt the floor beneath me shift as shadows danced wildly along the walls. Mark stumbled back, his fear palpable, while my mother's face twisted in a mixture of concern and something darker. "You don't know what you're asking for," she shouted, but her voice was drowned out by the roar of the energy swirling around us. I squared my shoulders, determination igniting within me as I faced the chaos head-on. "I will break this curse, I will find a way." But as I reached for the doll, I felt a sudden resistance, a force pushing me back, and I realized I was standing at the precipice of a choice that could alter everything. The weight of my lineage pressed down on me, the shadows closing in, and I had to decide, would I confront the darkness, or would I let it consume me? And in that moment I felt the world tilt, the very fabric of reality shifting as the voices crescendoed into a deafening roar, urging me to embrace my destiny. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. The moment my fingers brushed against the doll, a shockwave of energy surged through me, igniting every nerve ending in my body. I gasped, a jolt of pain radiating from my core as visions flashed before my eyes. Fragments of memories that weren't mine, but felt achingly familiar. Annalise's laughter echoed like a haunting melody, intertwining with screams of anguish and betrayal. I stumbled backward, feeling the weight of the doll slip from my grasp as a blinding light enveloped the attic. It was as if the very essence of our family's history was unraveling before me, revealing the scars of past decisions and the burden they had placed on the generations that followed. The shadows twisted and writhed, desperate to reclaim their hold, but I stood firm, pushing against the tide of darkness. "Claire!" Mom's voice broke through, filled with a mix of terror and relief, but I could barely focus on her words. I was lost in the maelstrom of truths, secrets clawing at my mind, demanding to be acknowledged. With an anguished cry, I forced myself to confront the chaos, to understand the source of our family's pain. Then, just as abruptly as it had begun, the energy surged outward in a blinding flash, collapsing into a silent void. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath, the weight of the doll lying heavy beside me. The whispers faded, leaving behind a deafening silence that settled like a shroud. I looked up to see Mark standing frozen, eyes wide with uncertainty. "What just happened?" he whispered, his voice trembling. Mom knelt beside me, her hands trembling as they brushed against my arm. "You did it, Claire. You faced it. But..." Her voice trailed off, a shadow crossing her features. "The cost may not be over." I glanced at the doll, now still and seemingly innocuous, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was merely slumbering. "What do you mean?" I asked, panic creeping back into my chest. "The whispers may be quiet, but they're not gone," Mom said, her eyes darkening. "Annalise is bound to this place, and as long as she exists, she will seek a way to break free." Mark's gaze darted between us, concern etching deeper lines on his face. "What about us? What if the pact is still in place? What if it finds a way to come back?" The weight of his words settled heavily in the room, echoing the uncertainty that now loomed over us. I could feel the scars of what I had just faced etched into my mind. Painful truths about my family and the darkness that had been lurking just beneath the surface. As we gathered ourselves, I noticed something glimmering among the debris, a small ornate key, half buried under the dust. My heart raced. "What is this?" I murmured, reaching for it. Mom's eyes widened in recognition. That's the key to the cellar. It has always been locked." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What's in the cellar?" Her gaze fell, and I could see the fear flicker in her eyes. "We don't know, Claire. That's why it's never been opened." The room felt charged with potential, the air thick with unspoken questions. "Then we need to find out," I said, determination surging within me once more. The confrontation might have quelled the immediate threat, but new mysteries loomed ahead, shadows still lurking at the edges of our newfound silence. Mark nodded slowly, a sense of resolve settling over him. "Together," he affirmed, his grip on my hand tightening. I glanced at my mother, seeing the uncertainty etched in her features. "You have to trust me, Mom. We need to confront whatever is down there." The tension in the room shifted, binding us together with a sense of purpose. We would face whatever awaited us in the depths of our family's legacy, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. A new chapter was unfolding, and with it, the promise of darker revelations still to come. As I stood, clutching the key tightly in my palm, I felt the weight of my family's history resting on my shoulders, an unyielding reminder that the past would always seek a way to resurface. With one last look at the doll, I stepped towards the door, ready to unlock the next mystery that awaited us. As I clutched the key, a tremor of anticipation coursed through me. The cellar loomed ahead, an enigma wrapped in shadows and uncertainty. With each step toward the door, I felt the pulsing heartbeat of my family's past thrumming beneath my skin. An echo of Annalise's laughter mingling with the whispers of long-buried secrets. "Are you ready?" Mark's voice broke through my thoughts, sharp and steady. I could see the uncertainty in his eyes, a reflection of my own fears. I nodded, though doubt gnawed at my insides. The key felt heavier than ever as I approached the lock. Mom stood behind us, her expression a mix of fear and resolve, but I could sense the tremors of her own hesitation. The air thickened with tension, and I hesitated, one hand hovering over the keyhole. "What if we're not ready for what's down there?" I whispered, the weight of our decision pressing down on me. "Then we'll face it together," Mark replied, his voice a solid anchor in the storm of my thoughts. Taking a deep breath, I inserted the key, feeling it click into place. A chill swept through the attic as the door creaked open, revealing darkness that seemed to stretch infinitely. The whispers returned, swirling like a tempest, warning and beckoning all at once. We stepped into the void, light from the attic fading behind us, and I felt a gnawing sense of dread settle in my stomach. The atmosphere was thick and oppressive, charged with the energy of what had once been. But as I turned to look back at Mom and Mark, the door slammed shut, sealing us in with the echoes of our family's past. My heart raced as I realized we were trapped, the whispers crescendoing into a cacophony of voices, Annalise's laugh mingling with cries of despair. In that moment I understood the darkness wasn't merely a remnant of the past. It had been waiting, hungry for us to stumble into its grasp. And as I stood in the suffocating silence, I knew this was just the beginning. The uncertainty loomed like a specter, our fate hanging precariously in the balance. We had uncovered one truth, only to unearth a deeper darkness, one that begged for release. As my heart thudded against my ribcage, I realized that the real question was not what awaited us in the cellar, but what we were willing to sacrifice to confront it. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story.